All right, so today we're going to be talking about Microsoft's strategy as it relates to enterprise communications. So because it's a streaming show, part of that big piece is MicrosoftStream, which they just announced as generally available in July. Also Microsoft Teams, as well as Skype for Business. And how all those are going to eventually fit together. So my name's Andy Howard. I have a consulting company called Howard & Associates that helps organizations implement video communications, so primarily video streaming, as well as video conferencing, unified communications. I've done a little bit of video call center stuff. And I also have done some work with the different vendors in the industry too. So the two big projects I've worked on recently are with Deloitte and BlackRock. I'm currently working with BlackRock to help them implement live and on-demand streaming in their environment, which is kind of complicated because they have a lot of virtual desktops. They're rolling out multicast throughout their organization, so there's a lot of changes going on. But as I said, we have kind of a small group here, so we've got an hour, and you're going to get bored if I'm talking the whole time, so feel free to interject as we go along here. Well, first of all, so everybody obviously, there's a lot of corporations here, so people are familiar with the Microsoft products, but does everybody know how familiar are people with Stream and Teams and Skype for Business? I'm assuming Skype for Business is probably pretty well known, but. Okay. So you've already jumped into Microsoft Teams? Okay, great. Anybody else?
Yeah, we've got Teams deployed in our entire organization, but I was wondering if you had any info on Skype for Business merging with Teams or rebranding or...
Yeah, that'll be part of...
to link the Skype for Business to Teams back to Communicator eventually.
That's part of this, yeah. So we'll get into that. Yep. Okay. Very good. All right, so like I said, this is a streaming media conference, so we're going to focus mostly on MicrosoftStream, but you'll see how that fits. I mean, it's actually, I should have sort of like put these across the thing because everything's going to sort of feed into Microsoft Teams as the future goes along here. So MicrosoftStream is the new tool that Microsoft has released to allow organizations to publish and share video content. So think of it as like an enterprise YouTube type environment without the live capabilities at this point, but we'll talk about some of that as we go along. Microsoft Teams is Microsoft's term they just announced at Ignite, which is their big sort of user and developer conference, that Teams is really going to be their primary client for communications going forward. So the Skype for Business eventually, the big thick client will probably go away, although they do have desktop clients for Teams, they have web clients, they have mobile. But this is really the interface that people are going to predominantly be using moving forward. And I've used different products. I've used a little bit of Slack. I've used Teams a little bit. The general perception is that it's going to not just only take over the video communications, but also even reduce the reliance on email considerably. So even Outlook, might end up eventually going away and working its way into Teams. And then Skype for Business is, kind of old faithful. It's been Microsoft's primary method of communicating in real time for past probably 10 years. And I have an evolution slide, as we go along. So this is the timeline that Microsoft has come out with for MicrosoftStream. So originally, back in 2014, they said that they were coming out with Office 365 video. So as the name states, Office 365 video was very heavily tied to Office 365. the files had to be uploaded to SharePoint online first. So there was a bunch of limitations that I think Microsoft quickly realized, we're going to really limit the rollout of this solution if we tie it to only people that have Office 365. So they kind of changed strategies. They kind of had two different development timelines going on at the same time. And then they, last year in July, they announced that they're going to come out with MicrosoftStream, and eventually Office 365 was going to come into that. And then finally, this summer, they announced the general availability of Stream. So it's about 2.5 years that they've been working on this before they got the product out. So from my perspective, I've had a lot of clients that have been interested in the solution so far, but nobody has really pulled the trigger on it. And as we go through the details, you'll kind of see why some of the potential limitations. But for those of you that are not familiar with it, I'm gonna just start off here by playing a video from Microsoft, which gives an overview.
Your business is a community that shares ideas, stories, and information every day. Here's a better way to do just that. Introducing MicrosoftStream, the smartest way to upload, organize, and share video content company-wide. Stream adds intelligence to the way you engage with content. Speech within the video is automatically transcribed, which not only enhances accessibility, but enables deep search within a video. Facial detection helps you visualize where each person is and lets you jump to the exact moment that's important to you, just by clicking on the speaker's timeline. Stream is built for collaboration, making it easy to bring video into the apps you use every day, like Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, Yammer, and more. Now anyone in your company can easily add a video to your MicrosoftStream site. Just add a description, a hashtag or two, choose who can see it, and publish. Trending videos are served up on your personalized homepage, along with channels you create or follow. One for HR, training, company events, you decide. It's also easy to like videos and share them with others. And Stream is available as part of Office 365 or a standalone enterprise solution. Try it for free today. To get started, all you need is a corporate or school email and MicrosoftStream.
So that is the Microsoft overview of Stream. So, in terms of it being a first release product, really, I think they've done a good job on the feature set. There's a lot of capabilities that they've been able to incorporate into there, and there's some great functionality in terms of the automatic speech to text, the ability to search on that. The deep search that they call it is where you put a search term in. So let's say, I don't know, say Hyatt or something like that, and it'll take you to that particular place in the video where that word was mentioned. So, like I said, it's definitely a promising future, but there are some limitations that I've found out at this point. So the biggest of those is that, as I said before, Stream leverages Azure. So Azure's media services have been used for a lot of large-scale events, including like the Olympics, Super Bowls, things like that. And so Microsoft took all the learnings that they had there and decided that we could incorporate that into the enterprise. The big difference, though, is that typically when you're streaming out to people on the internet for consumer purposes, then it's going to go up to Azure, and then it's going to go off to the CDN, and all the viewers are going to pull it over a public CDN, so that works extremely well. In the enterprise space, though, you're going to publish that content out to Azure, and then it's going to go to the CDN, and then every single person is going to pull that content back into your network. So let's say you had 100 people that were watching any piece of video at any one time. All those people are going to be pulling that over your internet pipe. So you need to have a solution in place, like an eCDN solution, in order to deal with that. And that's really one of the biggest things that I think is limiting the deployment of Stream at this point, is that a lot of people don't actually have that. A lot of enterprises are used to having their even if they put their management software in the cloud, the video on demand server would be internal, so you're not pulling all that content in over the internet. So that's one of the big things that's hindering deployment a little bit. So Microsoft recognizes that. They had, at their launch, they have 3 organizations that they're working with officially that are helping this scenario. So Ramp is a software company that has a caching software that can run on any kind of server on a virtual machine or on a blade on a piece of networking equipment, things like that. Kind of more of your traditional caching device, but a little bit lower cost than you might get from a Riverbed or something like that, where they typically are looking to do bigger things than just a video caching device. Hive and Collective are 2 other types of solutions that use like a peer-to-peer distribution method in order to distribute the video. Those solutions are good and they work well when they're deployed. However, it is a very long sales cycle and it takes a long time to get that happening because you have a lot of people within the organization that you need to deal with. You've got desktop, you've got security. A lot of people, if they hear peer-to-peer, so they don't even say peer-to-peer anymore, they say software-defined networking or something like that in order to get around that, the peer-to-peer term. But that's really what's happening. So for example, if you were in an office in Chicago and you're pulling a stream from the internet, if you pulled it down and then your neighbor also decided to access that same stream, you might be the one that's delivering it, and then it just kind of creates a mesh type of network like that. But those are great solutions, but again, they take a long time to deploy. It's really lengthening the sales cycle, so it makes it a little bit harder for the solution to be deployed. All right, well, so before I go on, I'm going to actually do a demo now. I have my own Office 365 account, and I'm going to show you sort of the interface of Stream, but does anybody have any questions before we do that? All right. All right, so this is my account here, and I don't have, whoops. I do not have a lot up here. I just published one video today, and I'll do another one here. But this is kind of the main portal functionality that you get when you come in here. This can be customized to some extent, but mostly sort of with colors and things like that. They don't allow you to do much more design on it than that. But basically, there's, the top menu bar here is pretty straightforward. You can browse for content, so you can search for different videos. You have my content, so there's my video that we uploaded. So I went to business school at Michigan, and I took my kids out there for the Michigan State game, so I uploaded the Michigan marching band video here earlier. And I'll show you how to upload a video, because I have another one that we can do. Once it is uploaded, there's different things you can do with it. You can add it to a watch list, which is that. You can add it to a group or a channel, which is how they limit certain people to view certain content. You can edit it and more actions, or you can download it or share it. So if you edit it, here's all of the metadata that can be added about the video. It was a very straightforward process when I uploaded this. I just had to name it. I gave it a description. It chose a thumbnail for me. It actually creates a caption file based on the language that you select for it. So it automatically created a caption file for it. There's some options about whether you can comment on it and things like that. And then you can determine who you want to share it with, whether that's groups or channels or individual people. So I think the permissioning thing, yeah, go ahead. I don't think file size. I know originally they didn't support like FLV files, but I think they do now. I know one of the people that I was working with that was looking at it, they don't support audio-only uploads, and it was just a matter of, they had to make some decisions in their development process. They weren't saying that that was impossible, it just wasn't supported at the time. But these were MP4 files. I uploaded them, and they transcoded them like in a snap. So certainly, MP4s are going to work. I think they've added FLV and MOVs now too, which were the two that they didn't support initially. So I mean, Azure, is a pretty powerful solution. So I think most of the file types should be available. I have not tested that myself, but this particular file is probably not a very good example because we were at a stadium and it was just noise in the background. But I think that they were saying in one of the things that I read, it's not perfect for sure, but like 80 to 90% accurate. And the thing that they do have an advantage of, it's just going to get better and better over time. Because it's Azure, there's a lot of people doing speech to text, for sort of publicly available content. So those solutions are just getting better and better over time. But if you do need it to be a perfect caption, you can download the caption file and edit it, and then re-upload it. Yeah, it's a web VTT. If I click on that, does it say it? When I tried downloading it before, and it's a web VTT, yeah.
Are you aware of any ability to control how it handles the video when you throw it out into the cloud, or is it just Azure's standard transcoding platform that it runs through?
They do. I think it's actually intelligent, is what they say. So if I throw up a file that has a lot of motion, it might create a higher bandwidth profile. It might create more profiles. If it's just a talking head video, it might only create like 3 profiles. So it's actually dynamic, but there isn't really any way to set it to any specific standards. But it does create adaptive bit rate. So if you're in an office that has limited bandwidth, you'll get a lower bandwidth stream. If a lot of people are watching video and your internet starts getting clogged, it's going to drop it down. So there, you can create channels. So I created a football channel. You can, when you're viewing videos, you can set them to a watch list. So if you found something of interest, but you didn't want to watch it now, you want to add it to your watch list, you can do that. There's groups. And then you can follow channels as well. So I'm just going to upload another video. We went on an RV trip this summer out west to a bunch of the national parks, and so this is a picture of us, or there's a video actually of us on the Grand Canyon taking a helicopter ride, which was, if you ever get the chance to do that, do not pass it up. It was amazing. So here's where it says you can automatically specify a language, or you can do it on an individual basis. It kind of starts processing. Since it's already uploaded it, now it's processing it. That means it's creating the different renditions of the file. It'll create a thumbnail for you automatically. And then you can do your permissions. So your permissions can be based on, you can either share it with a group. So a group would be a group of people that are based on Office 365 groups, or a channel. So a channel is sort of a collection of different content, or people, which are individuals within Active Directory as well. And then you can give those people the ability to be an owner, which means they can edit the content, they can edit the metadata, or just display, which means all they can do is view it. And there's some other options about generate the caption file, or you can upload a file if you need it to be more accurate. And then you can download that automatically generated one, edit it, and re-upload it. And then you just hit publish now. So then that video eventually will end up here in my playlist. So that's kind of the interface in a nutshell. I think, like I said, especially for a first release product, I think it's really well done. They've got a huge advantage in the fact that they can tie into from the group perspective, the authentication, the authorization. They tie into those Office 365 groups. That's a huge advantage for them, I found, over some other solutions, because then, with other solutions, you have to go to the security people, you have to go to the Active Directory people, you have to integrate it all together. This is just sort of out of the box. And then if you create a group within Stream, it actually becomes an Office 365 group. So, which means you can use it for Teams, you can use that group for an email list, a lot of, all throughout the Microsoft ecosystem. All right. So let's. Yeah, it was. I didn't know how to get that set up, but I can. You're not going to be able to see this, but it's basically the same interface on my phone. Very responsive design, no app needed, which I think is very impressive. This is an Android phone, but I know I've tried it on iPad, iPhone. It's all good. Yeah, there is REST API that they have. Yeah, I mean, it does that to some extent on it out of the box. Like if I had uploaded something that was more of like this session, it'll automatically do a speech to text, and then it will have that. When you saw the video, it'll have the whole transcript show up there. Now there's a limitation to that in the fact that you have to pay. You either have to have E5, which is sort of the highest end of Office 365, or you have to pay $5 a month per user to get that. But in terms of being able to tie in, if you really want to do some unique things, I'm sure with that API, you take that file, tell Azure to go process it somewhere else, or or have another third party do whatever it does to that functionality, and then get it into their database. I think it's probably kind of immature for that type of purpose at this point, but it'll get better and better over time. It's relatively inflexible in terms of the interface right now. Like, there's no player customization you can do. There's no interface customization you can do other than colors and things like that. So here's where I kind of put together like a pros and cons here. So, big pro is that it leverages that Azure Media Services, very powerful platform, has hosted lots of large events, constantly getting better and better. The con on that is that all the video is delivered from the cloud. There's no way to have an on-premise VOD server. So again, that requires an eCDN for most customers. And from a live perspective, there's no support for multicast either. So if you're going to do a live event, which eventually Stream says that they're going to support, right now you'd have to do it with Skype for Business meetings broadcast. And again, that doesn't have multicast, so you really have to make sure you have an eCDN in place then, because even if you had 10, 15, 100, couple hundred users, you could really choke your bandwidth quickly. Another big pro is that it's tightly integrated with Office 365. I really kind of mentioned that already. And the videos can easily be published into Teams, into Yammer, SharePoint, wherever you want to be able to publish them. A big con on that, though, is that it's only internal users now, so you cannot share anything with anybody outside of the organization. I know that that was also a limitation of Microsoft Teams. They just provided the capability now that you can share with external third parties using Office 365 groups, so I'm assuming that Stream is going to follow that pattern as well relatively shortly. From the pricing perspective, it's free for Office 365 Enterprise customers, which is huge. So E1, E3, and E5, it's all included. Also, Office 365 for education. Some of the advanced features like that deep search, being able to search within the content of the file, that facial recognition that you saw in the demo video, those are specific to the E5 account, or you can pay $5 per user per month to get that functionality as well. And interestingly enough, it's not included with Office 365 business accounts, which Microsoft's now saying are targeted towards 250 users or less. Whereas I think right now they really should be promoting this to those users, because that's really where it fits the best right now based on the capabilities. I mean, if you were a small business and you didn't, medium-sized business, and you didn't have any video capability today, this would be a great solution to get started. So we talked about this a little bit. The support for live video is only through Skype for Meetings broadcast. The advanced features are only included with the more advanced accounts. Another pro, to Matt's point, extremely mobile friendly. I think they did a great job of that. And then I have a bunch of just sort of little things that I noticed as I was doing analysis for one of my clients. One of the big issues that one of my clients had was that they wanted to make sure all the content was stored in the United States because they had some government clients, and Microsoft could not basically guarantee that it was going to be in the United States. So that was, the content could really go anywhere worldwide, which is a problem for some customers. There's no real approval process on when you publish content. So a lot of enterprise products will have, if I'm in the marketing department, I upload a video, it goes through an approval process. 3 people need to give it a thumbs up, and then it gets published. There's nothing like that. I basically publish it, I choose who I want to share it with, and it's available. There's sort of some limited administrative controls right now. They did a better job in the final release than they did sort of in their first release. I have heard, I've read the forums a little bit. There's kind of nuances. There's bugs. There's crashes. It is a first release product. It's only been out in general availability for a couple months, so people are really starting to put it to its test. But I think they'll fix those problems pretty quickly. There's no ability to have an on-premise video on-demand server. As we talked about, all the content needs to come from the cloud. The analytics are pretty basic. There's no player customization or portal customization, and there's no playlist functionality built in now. You can chapter the videos, though. Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of this stuff, if anybody's ever been in product management, is just testing. You got to limit what you're going to release because you got to limit sort of what you're going to be testing. But overall, like I said, it's a pretty good solution to start off with for sure. This is just some other functionality that I couldn't really show you on my demo. They do have a trending videos thing, so if you're in a larger organization, a lot of people are publishing videos, sort of the most watched rises to the top. There's my watch list. That's where you can say, I want to watch this later. You can follow different channels. This is a little complicated, but this is sort of the way that they do the the groups and the channels to allow, you know, only certain people to view certain content. So basically, you can either publish a video to a group or to a channel, or to basically everybody. And that's how you create a group. So I'm just going to flip through these. And this is a more detailed, you know, when you have more people in the group, you can say who's the owner and who's a, you know, just a viewer, so that multiple people could edit that file if they had to. And this is just the pricing. So, you know, if you're not an Office 365 customer, you can still get MicrosoftStream. It's $3 a month for sort of the basic thing, and $5 a month for the one that has that, you know, deep search and the facial recognition. And then if you are like an E1 or an E3 customer, you can buy an add-on to get that, that same functionality. There is, I was going to put it up here, but it was a little too complicated. There's basically, you know, some amount of storage and some amount of bandwidth you can have per user, but it seemed like in aggregate, if you had a bunch of users, it's probably going to be a non-event, because they're giving a pretty good amount. And this I pulled off of actually the slides from Ignite in 2016, but this is sort of like their vision that they outlined at the time. So they are going to do live streaming, or at least, you know, that's on their roadmap of ideas. You know, you had the question about the APIs for integrating other services, you know, integration with Power Apps and Dynamics and things like that. You know, searching capabilities. Well, this is from now to future, so kind of goes to the right. So a lot of the API stuff seems to be a little bit out in the future a little bit. Yeah, they haven't really talked about that, but I can't imagine that that's not, you know, that wouldn't be part of what they want to do. Or probably within Teams. I know that there's a lot of talk within Teams and all these sort of, you know, group chat products or whatever you want to call them, where you can automatically record the meeting. It actually can figure out who said what in the meeting. So you could search for when somebody said something. You know, it takes a roster of who was actually in the meeting, all those kind of things that, you know, used to be a very manual process. All right, was there any more questions about Stream? Yeah.
Do you have any idea of like a time frame on this roadmap?
What I've been saying is, I don't think for a larger enterprise, this is going to be a good solution for 2 or 3 years. That's just my hunch. You know, it's just knowing development timeframes and, you know, kind of a lot of the stuff, the limitations that I was talking about. I have heard sort of through the grapevine that they're starting to fall behind a little bit on what they've already been, you know, striving towards. So.
There was actually a session at the Microsoft Ignite 2017 conference where they actually went into some of the roadmap stuff. I don't know how that linked, but just if you search for that online, you can actually
Okay.
you might get some extra info on what's in the shorter term roadmap as well as
There is also a link, and that's a good point. I meant to pull that. When they announced that it was generally available, they had, here's what's in Office 365, here's what's in Stream, and there was some near-term deliverables like, you know, Q4 this year, Q1 next year, and Q2 next year. So if you can search for that, I should have provided that here, but any other questions? How are we doing on time? Yeah. Yeah. That's today. I mean, that is one of the biggest things. They've mentioned this many times, that's one of the biggest limitations that they want to remove. And Microsoft Teams, which we'll talk about next, that was a huge limitation there, and they've just, lifted that. So I don't see that when, in fact, I think in that document, they were saying Q4 this year, you should be able to serve outside the company. Now, is it going to be like Bright Cove or something like that? No, there's not. It's not going to have. People probably aren't going to use this right away to be, delivering video on their .com site, or at least a large organization. But maybe a smaller organization would. There's no reason that you couldn't. All right, so let's go into Teams here. And I'm going to show another sort of overview video.
We've seen the impact teamwork has had on our world. But what if teams could achieve even more?
To truly do great work, we need people that have different experiences and understand the world from a different perspective.
The thing that's challenging is to make sure that there's a platform for that collaboration. Teams are very liquid. We need to keep up with the way our people like to work.
What if people from different cultures and generations could come together in a more purposeful way, so ideas flow freely and evolve organically? Just imagine what we could achieve. Introducing Microsoft Teams in Office 365.
Microsoft Teams is helping us accelerate and win on Sundays. Now we can share common ideas, common goals.
I'm excited about the ability for people to be engaged in multiple teams and making it very easy for them to not have to go to 15 different places.
Microsoft Teams is a chat-based workspace that gives people one place to connect and create in inherently human ways.
You have that constant thread of communication that you can go back in history and see. It's all right there in a single interface.
Accenture is nearly 400,000 people across 120 countries. To be able to engage and collaborate this way is a big game changer for us.
A way that builds trust and helps create a natural rhythm so ideas flow freely and evolve organically.
There's a lot of communication, there's a lot of data sharing. We're all sort of working towards the same end goal, and that's to build a car that goes out on the racetrack to win.
It's all happening real time in a very frictionless way. That's the way people expect to work these days.
Because it's part of the Office 365 set of collaboration tools, it's part of what we already do. It's the central hub where the conversations happen. It opens possibilities for connection and collaboration that we never thought was possible before.
And it's about empowering them and taking somebody's good idea and making it an awesome idea.
It has truly made us more efficient.
This is exactly what we've been waiting for. This is how we think the world of tomorrow will work.
Welcome to Microsoft Teams. Together, there's no limit to what we can achieve.
All right. So Microsoft's putting a lot of weight behind this. This has kind of become sort of the next big battleground for the desktop. So there's really three main people, as I see it. As Slack was sort of the organization that kind of started to define this type of way of working. They've got a lot of customers already. They're kind of in front of everybody else. But a lot of those companies are sort of mid-sized, small and mid-sized companies. I think Microsoft's got obviously the advantage that this is all tied into Office 365 and all the functionality around that. And then Cisco's doing the same type of thing with Spark. And both Microsoft and Cisco are also sort of trying to bring in hardware devices into the mix. So like Microsoft has the Surface Hub, which is like an interactive whiteboard that can be brought into this. Spark has a Spark board. So they're all trying to create kind of an ecosystem around this way of working. So this is what Microsoft said at Ignite this year, is that this is the new vision for intelligent communication, and that Teams will evolve as a primary client and replace Skype for Business. So that's a huge statement, because they've been pushing Skype for Business for many years now. As that was kind of their stronghold on the desktop, and they started seeing that slip away a little bit, I think, with Slack. And Cisco obviously is a big competitor too, so they want to be able to control that desktop still, like they have for many years. and who will win? I think there's room for multiple players in this space. You kind of think about like Gmail and Exchange and Outlook now. Slack does have a head start, but Microsoft and Cisco have a lot of brand loyalty. And I think for Microsoft, the key advantage is that integration with the whole Office 365 and Active Directory and the groups and things like that. There is a pretty interesting demo site that they put together. That you can actually go in and sort of understand how it works a little bit better. So are you able to see this? Yeah. This is like, on the side here, there's activities, there's chats, there's teams, there's meetings. And this demo kind of takes you through all the different things. So these are the teams. You can create channels within your teams. There's different conversations. And then you can embed files and things like that. It all, like for Microsoft, it all works with OneNote. So if you publish a file up to your room here, you can also share it on OneNote. It's very well integrated. And then again, MicrosoftStream could also, you can publish content into this. It'd be delivered from Stream, but it would show up here, in your channel. And you can think about some different things that they do. So like they have that channel model in Stream, and there's a channel model here. You could think that if you published a video into a channel here, it would go into the same channel in Stream, or vice versa. If you publish it into Stream, it would go into a channel here. All right, so I'm not going to take you through that whole thing, but go back to the presentation. So the final piece here is Skype for Business. So this, like I said, it's been their primary communication tool for several years. You can have contacts. You can do chat. It shows you your presence, so it'll automatically tie into your calendar, for example. And if you're in a meeting, it'll show you as read in a meeting. You can do chat, escalate that to voice, escalate that to video. And they also have screen sharing capabilities. So this is kind of the evolution. It started out as really Office Communicator was the first real release where people used it, and then they called it Microsoft Link, and they changed the name to Skype for Business. The bottom line is that all the back-end functionality that Skype for Business can do is going to remain. But it's just going to be a different sort of front end for how people are going to consume that, and that front end is going to be Teams. So this was sort of their strategy. They started with the presence and chat. They added the screen sharing. That was really to try to take on Cisco's WebEx. They have video capabilities. I've found that a lot of people don't utilize the video capabilities in it very much because it's frankly not very good. Then they've really, the last couple of years, they've really been taking on the telephony industry. They want this to be sort of the next generation PBX, and you get rid of your old phone system. And then, so the next war is going to be this persistent chat type environment with Slack and Cisco Spark. So Skype for Meetings Broadcast is a way that you can use Skype for Business to actually do a broadcast. They say that it can support up to 10,000 attendees, but again, the way that it works is that it sends the stream out to Azure, and then everybody in your organization is going to pull in that same stream unless you have some ECDN functionality to basically pull in one stream and then split it to multiple end users. So it's pretty critical that if you're going to do this, you know what's going to be happening on the network. Even a small event with 100 users could cause a lot of problems. This is the current method that they recommend if you want to do live video instead of MicrosoftStream. There's a pretty good overview video on how you set it up. Basically, you set it all up in Skype for Business. You can, schedule events, do all, all the things you would think you'd want to do for a live event. And then you start and run the event through Skype for Business, but the users view the video in a web page. So it's sending it up to Azure, it's processing it, it's turning it into a stream, and then it delivers that content within a web page. Here's some things that I think about this, with Skype for Business is that, from a quality perspective, a lot of organizations have put a lot of money into, kind of creating their own little studio environments. They have high-end encoders and things like that. The quality is not going to be as good in this environment, in my opinion. And also, down to the last point, there's really no redundancy. So you think what you're doing is you're broadcasting that event from a machine that's running Skype for Business. If that machine goes down, the whole event goes down, and there's not really a redundancy built into it. Again, it's the cloud only, so it's going out to the cloud. Everybody's pulling it back in, and it's not really, it has some nice features for scheduling and things like that, but it's not quite as feature-rich as some other platforms, and they sort of pull different pieces to do Q&A. They pull in Yammer and things like that. So it's not sort of as well integrated, I guess, as some of the other solutions out there. Yeah. There is a way that you can do, like the people that are running the event actually can have a two-way communication, but what's going out is going out one way to Azure and then getting pulled back in. But you can, people could use the Skype, the people that are running the event, whether there's a moderator or something like that, and I am the presenter questions and things like that. That is a way people utilize it. All right, so in terms of key takeaways, I would encourage you, if you are anywhere near a Microsoft shop, to really get to understand Microsoft Teams, because Microsoft's going to be pushing that harder and harder, and it's going to be really a key thing to have some expertise on. Keep an eye on MicrosoftStream. Like I said, I think it's a really good solution for small and medium-sized businesses, people that haven't done a lot of video before but need a method to share that. And today maybe they've got a YouTube channel and they're throwing some stuff up on YouTube, or maybe they're using Vimeo or something like that. If it's in order to get people to publish more and more content internally, it's a good solution for that. From the large enterprise perspective, I think there are some limitations that we talked about, but I think they'll get to those, and that'll be a real viable solution moving forward. And then, like I said, Skype for Business, the front end is going to go away, but the back end functionality is still going to remain and be a key component of that Teams environment. And the last thing I wanted to say about Stream is I think it's good for the industry that that the heavyweights are kind of coming in. I think you've got Microsoft with MicrosoftStream, IBM is making a big push with IBM Cloud Video. They purchased Ustream and another provider for video on demand. Cisco is partnering with vBrick. So there's a lot of momentum in the industry, and people are recognizing, if big companies like that are getting involved, then you know that it's a big market and people want these solutions. Now, there are still some smaller providers that provide very unique capabilities too. So don't only think about the big guys, but do your due diligence when you're looking around for different solutions. We've got a few more minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? Any more questions?
You can actually find that video I was talking about.
Okay.
The roadmap stuff, so anyone that was looking for that.
Thanks. That's great.
I work for Microsoft, but I don't do these products, so I'm just the user of them. But
Yeah.
sorry, I was a couple minutes late.
That's all right.
Do any of the products allow you to
In term, well, yeah, I mean, you could go, so if you're going to publish a video on demand file, you could, oh, for live? Skype for Business Broadcast, I think you need to invite the user to be a presenter. Yeah. I'm sure that you could ask a question, through chat, but I don't think they haven't in that, at least in the Skype for Business broadcast, they don't have the two-way capability. You would imagine that would be a great idea though, because that would be a huge differentiator for them over some of the other sort of webcasting platforms, and it's already built into, their Skype. But the thing is, the viewers aren't viewing it in Skype; they're just viewing it in a web page because it's a adaptive bitrate stream. But you could still say, maybe there's a, open communication line where somebody can raise their hand and ask a question, and they could use Skype to ask that question over the audio. That can be a little bit challenging sometimes because there's a lot more delay in the one-way video than the two-way. But that would, if they could figure that out, that would be a huge win. There's I think the ones that I think do a really good job of webcast. I mean, I think a lot of the different providers have their different strengths and weaknesses. I know, Media Platform has a really strong webcasting capability, and there's a ton of features and functionalities in there. You can do registration, you can do all sorts of things for internal and external. There's another company called Sherpa that I've been working with a little bit, and they have a new solution that looks really, really good and kind of is sort of built on more modern technologies. A lot of these providers have been around for a while. Vbrick has really expanded their solution, and they're doing a lot with Cisco now. And then, even some of the online video providers are starting to work their way into the enterprise too, because a lot of the, there's only so many media companies you can work with. So like Bright Cove, I know is making a big push into the enterprise, and I've seen some success with them. They don't really have a very feature-rich webcasting platform. It's just you can do live video, and it's just a video window. There's TalkPoint as well. I know a lot of people that are using TalkPoint very successfully, which is kind of like a self-service webcasting environment that's more focused on outbound. So there's a lot of good providers out there. It really, you got to kind of match what they do best with what you're trying to accomplish. No, in fact, they even announced that they were going to do another release of the on-premise Skype for Business server at Ignite. So it's going to be around for a while. It's just a matter of, I think it's a matter of how long it takes for customers to adopt the fact that they're sort of using a new interface. And I think that always takes longer than the vendor would want it to. Do you have a question? Yeah. Yeah, but I mean that's all the stuff that they're going to try to build into it. But so I think it's more, again, the front end is maybe eventually going to go away, but the back end is going to remain. And that's why they said, they're still doing a Skype for Business server on-prem, another release, which people didn't think they were necessarily going to do. They certainly are pushing in, the cloud functionality really hard. So eventually you'd say, I'm in Teams. I want to make a phone call. I make a phone call to somebody within Teams. That probably uses Skype to Skype. I want to make a phone. I've got an external partner in my team. I need to actually make a phone call to them. So that, and from the user perspective, they're just hitting call, call Joe, and all the magic's happening in the background. And then they have like phone bridge capabilities and things like that.
I do a follow-up to your mention about CDN part of the sales cycle. We use Collective as our CDN.
Okay.
And that sales cycle can be long or short depending on how you're really set up. But deployment, especially, is pretty extremely quick.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I think it's more about convincing the security people that it's good, convincing the networking folks that it's not going to do anything bad on your network, and then, but I think, it's really just a client that needs to get installed once you're ready to go, right? Yeah. So I think it's more about the sort of the front end of getting everybody to agree that this is what we want to do. Yeah. No, Collective's good. Hive, I've heard good things about Hive as well, and I know the ramp folks really well too, and their solution is supposed to be solid. And then if you have like a Riverbed implementation already, or even Blue Coat has some caching capabilities. A lot of that might already be there, but in general, I found it's not. And to try to go and implement a Riverbed solution when all you want to do is do caching for video tends to just not work out that well, because they try to turn the conversation into a, application acceleration discussion and things like that. Yeah, I think Wowza is a great solution, but when like MicrosoftStream would need to communicate with the Wowza server, it's not really like a transparent, caching thing where it just sort of happens automatically. It's more you push the files out to it and things like that. And I don't think MicrosoftStream has done anything with that. But I know a lot of solutions utilize Wowza a lot, and they do push them out to the edges all over the place very successfully. So that that's a great product for sure. All right. Well, thanks for coming out somewhat late on a Friday after lunch, and appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.